Welcome to the Cyber Philosophy channel. Today we are going to talk about an epistemological turn to see if it can help AI transform from technical artificial intelligence into natural wisdom that brings happiness to humanity. I mean, just imagine an artificial intelligence so incredibly advanced that it can, map the entire human genome or pass the bar exam in seconds.
Right, but then it's so stubbornly arrogant that it constantly argues with you about your own personal feelings.
Yes, exactly. And today, we are looking at exactly that paradox. We're doing a deep dive into two incredibly profound, industry-shaking sources, the 2026 Global AI Development Bottleneck Depth Report and its companion paper exploring decentralized epistemology.
Which is quite a mouthful, I know.
It is. But this is a really special deep dive for you listening, because sitting right across from me is one of the researchers who actually co-authored this groundbreaking 2026 report.
It's truly a pleasure to be here.
So, throughout our conversation today, whenever you hear the word we, you are getting a direct window into the minds of the team who realize that the brute force hyper-expansion era of AI is, well, it's dying.
Yeah, dying is a strong word, but it's accurate.
Our mission today is to figure out why and how a radical shift in philosophy.
Yeah.
Yes, actual philosophy may be the only way to save it.
Right, because what we found in our research is that, for the last decade or so, the tech industry has treated artificial intelligence strictly as an engineering problem.
Like, just add more servers.
Exactly. Add more servers, feed it more data, and eventually magic happens.
Huh.
But as we sit here in 2026, the physical and digital realities have they've forced our hands.
You literally can't compute your way to human-level intelligence anymore.
No, we have hit a massive wall, and breaking through it requires us to really rethink what knowledge actually is.
I was reading through the first half of your report, which details this wall, and it made me think about a massive muscle car.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like for years, AI developers have just been flooring the gas pedal. But suddenly, the car has run out of both gas and road at the exact same time. Tell us about this physical limit, because you write that the famous scaling laws have just hit a brick wall post-GPT-5.
Yeah, that muscle car analogy it's perfectly apt. Because for years, the golden rule of AI, the scaling law, was just elegantly simple. More compute plus more data equals more intelligence.
It was basically a straight line up.
It was a linear progression, yeah. But in our research, we measured the current state of the art, and that growth has become intensely sublinear. To put it in perspective, let's look at a benchmark called MMLU Pro.
Okay, for those listening who might not follow the benchmarking world, what exactly is the MMLU Pro?
So it stands for Massive Multitask Language Understanding. It's essentially this brutal, comprehensive, standardized test for AI.
Like the SATs on steroids.
Basically, yes. It covers dozens of subjects: advanced mathematics, law, physics, history, ethical scenarios. And what we found is that when an AI model reaches near 90% accuracy on these complex benchmarks, the cost of improvement absolutely skyrockets.
So the last 10% is the hardest.
Beyond the hardest. Right now, it takes a staggering 5-fold increase in computing power just to squeeze out a 1% performance gain.
Wait, really? 5 times the energy and hardware just for a 1% bump?
Yes.
That is an unsustainable return on investment. You're essentially pouring oceans of resources into a thimble.
But precisely. And the implications are terrifying. Right now, a single AI query consumes 30 times more energy than a traditional Google search.
30 times.
30 times. So if we continue trying to drive this metaphorical muscle car the way we have been, we project that by 2030, AI infrastructure could consume up to 50% of all global data center power.
That's insane.
The brute force scaling model is ecologically and economically doomed.
So we are literally running out of power. But the report also points out that we're running out of raw building materials, which in this case is data. You detail something called data entropy and model collapse. What exactly is happening to the internet right now?
Well, we have essentially exhausted the supply of high-quality human-generated data. Currently, over 50% of the content on the internet is AI-generated.
Over half.
Over half. We call this synthetic data, or, more colloquially in the labs, we just call it AI slop.
AI slop, I love that. But wait, training on that is bad. Why? I mean, if the AI is smart, isn't its data smart?
Think of it like a genetic bottleneck in biology. If a species only breeds within a tiny, isolated pool, it loses genetic diversity. It becomes incredibly fragile.
Oh, I see.
Right, so when you train a new AI model on the output of older AI models, you create this closed negative feedback loop. The model begins to lose touch with the nuanced, messy, long-tail realities of the human experience.
It just becomes an echo chamber.
Exactly. It falls into what we term consensus hallucinations. It starts regurgitating a flattened, mediocre, average version of reality. It loses all the beautiful, strange edge cases that make up the real world.
That makes total sense. It's just averaging out the averages until everything is gray. But beyond the energy crisis and the data slog, you also argue that the underlying architecture itself, the transformers, have severe logical limits.
Yes, they do.
Like even if we had infinite power and infinite human data, they would still fail. Why is that?
Because despite their incredible fluency, transformers are fundamentally just probability predictors. They look at the context and mathematically guess the next most likely word.
They're just really good at autocomplete.
That's all they are. They completely lack what cognitive scientists call working memory.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
It means they fail at deep function composition. If you ask a transformer to solve a complex multi-step logic puzzle or a deep mathematical proof, it might do perfectly for the first 10 steps.
But then it loses track.
Right, because it doesn't actually have an internal working memory holding the core constraints of the problem. It's just predicting the next token based on the previous tokens. So by step 50, it loses the plot entirely.
It's imitating the form of reasoning, but it's not actually reasoning.
Exactly. It's not understanding the internal logic.
So it sounds incredibly confident while being completely wrong.
Yes, very often.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because this brings us to the core of your report. You argue that these technical limits, the energy drain, the data starvation, the logical failures, are just symptoms of a much deeper structural illness.
That's the real issue, yes.
The real problem is how current AI fundamentally understands knowledge itself. Why isn't AI's massive, seemingly flawless database of objective facts actually its biggest weakness?
This gets to the epistemological crisis we identified. And epistemology is simply the study of knowledge, what it is and how we acquire it. In our companion paper, we drew on a really powerful metaphor from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, the moon versus the sun.
The moon and the sun.
Current AI operates like the moon. It reflects a cold, flawless, so-called objective truth. It assumes there's one centralized absolute truth sitting in a database somewhere, and its job is to hand it down to us like an oracle.
But the moon doesn't actually create anything. It's just a dead rock reflecting light from somewhere else.
Exactly. It lacks life, context, and warmth. The sun, however, generates heat. It interacts with the world, it creates growth, it's dynamic. AI's current moon-like approach treats facts as static objects to be hoarded, completely divorced from the human context where those facts are actually used.
You included a really striking example of this in the report regarding something you call corrective bias. I want to walk the listener through this because it really clicked for me.
Sure.
Let's say a user logs into a medical or educational AI chatbot and says, I believe humans only use 10% of their brains. What does the AI do?
A current centralized AI will immediately and arrogantly correct the user. It will output a perfectly cited paragraph explaining why that's a neurological myth.
But wait, I have to jump in here. It has a myth. Why shouldn't the AI correct them? I mean, isn't the whole point of a computer to be accurate?
It is factually inaccurate, yes. But the AI completely fails to distinguish between an objective fact and a subjective belief in a human interaction.
Ah, I see.
It ignores the user's emotional state, their cultural background, or the context of why they might be saying that in the first place. It lacks what we call situational truth.
Situational truth. Okay, define that for me.
Situational truth means recognizing that in human communication, facts are only part of the equation. Imagine you're building an AI to be a partner in sensitive fields like psychology or elder care.
Right.
If a patient expresses a belief and the AI just acts as a cold, inflexible oracle that constantly drops textbook corrections on them, it destroys trust. It alienates the user. Knowledge shouldn't be a weapon used to prove a human wrong. It should be a bridge to understanding.
Think about that from a daily perspective. Imagine being in the hospital in pain, trying to explain how you feel, and your doctor keeps interrupting to correct your anatomical phrasing.
You would fire that doctor immediately.
Exactly. So your solution to this incredibly smart but socially inept AI is something you call decentralized epistemology. But I'm going to push back hard on this.
Bring it on.
If we strip away objective truth, doesn't AI just become completely relativistic? Like if I ask an AI, what is a lethal dose of Tylenol? Well, I don't want situational truth or a deep conversation about my cultural background. I want objective biological reality or somebody dies.
Right.
How is this not just a recipe for a dangerous, chaotic machine?
That is the most common and honestly the most vital pushback we receive. But it stems from a misunderstanding of what decentralization means in this specific context.
Okay, correct me then.
We built this framework using the theories of the philosopher Hans Georg Gadamer, specifically his work on hermeneutics and Niklas Luhmann's system theory.
Okay, for those of us who haven't brushed up on our 20th century German philosophy recently, let's unpack those. Hermeneutics is basically the study of interpretation, right? How does a machine interpret anything?
Think of hermeneutics as the science of reading the room. Decentralized epistemology isn't about ignoring the lethal dose of Tylenol. It's about what Gadamer called the fusion of horizons.
Fusion of horizon.
Yes. Your horizon is your background, your current situation, your immediate need. The AI's horizon contains all the medical data. True knowledge happens in the space where those two horizons fuse.
I see.
The AI still knows the lethal dose, but its primary goal isn't just to spit out a number, it's to understand why you're asking, to provide the number safely, and to recognize the gravity of the context.
So knowledge is a verb, not a noun. It's an event that happens between us.
Exactly. To make this operational, our report breaks this down into 4 decentralizations. First is desubjective. The AI must realize it's not the only intelligence in the room. The developer isn't the sole arbiter of reality.
Right.
Second is de-objective knowledge cannot be separated from the observer. Subjective beliefs are legitimate participants in the cognitive process.
That solves the 10% of the brain problem. The AI accepts the belief as part of the reality of that interaction, rather than just crushing it with a textbook fact.
Precisely. Third is acknowledging that truth is dynamic and temporary. A fact is meant to point to further meaning rather than being a final dead answer.
And the fourth.
Finally, de-rational, moving away from the superstition that pure logical computation is everything, and instead combining reason with emotion and will, allowing the AI to actually feel the context of the situation.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I need you to connect the dots for me. This is fascinating. I love talking about Gadamer and reading the room, but philosophy doesn't write Python code.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't configure a server farm. How on earth do you actually inject this high-level German philosophy into the impenetrable black box of a large language model?
That was the core engineering challenge of our report. We developed a methodology called reverse philosophical engineering, or RPE. Yeah. You see, current models are so staggeringly complex, billions of parameters, we can't look at the individual digital neurons to see how they think. So we treat the AI like a complex organism and use an entry and re-entry loop.
Walk me through this loop. How does reverse philosophical engineering actually alter the code?
Let me use an analogy. Think about training a seeing eye dog. You don't teach the dog the physics of how a combustion engine works so it can avoid cars.
Right, that would be impossible.
You train it based on a value system. The safety of its owner is paramount. In the entry phase, developers inject what we call philosophical prejudices into the AI. Instead of just training it to predict the next word, we align it using specific philosophical frameworks as mathematical loss functions.
And a loss function is basically the penalty and reward system during training, right?
Yeah.
It tells the AI bad job or good job.
Exactly. So instead of rewarding it just for factual accuracy, we might embed Kantian duty or Confucian benevolence or the principles of decentralized knowledge into that reward system. We mathematically program the AI to value these philosophical stances.
Can you give me an example of what that looks like in the lab?
Certainly.
Yeah.
When we were first modeling this, we actually broke the algorithm a few times.
Really?
We were trying to code empathy as a rigid rule, and the AI just froze. It was unable to output anything because it was absolutely terrified of offending the user.
Oh, wow.
That was a failure of the centralized moon approach. It brought us to the re-entry phase. We let the AI operate in simulated real-world conflicts, and we observed how it handled ambiguities. We traced its behavior back to its epistemological roots.
So you tracked it backwards.
Right. If the AI acted arrogantly, we didn't just tweak a syntax parameter. We went back to the philosophical layer, redefined how the model weighed truth versus benevolence, and ran the loop again. We repeated this until the AI stabilized in an organic, helpful coupling with human users.
You're basically doing cognitive behavioral therapy on an algorithm.
Basically, yes.
And you cite a really famous example in the report of where a shift in epistemology completely revolutionized a field of science. You talk about AlphaFold.
Yes. AlphaFold's massive success in predicting protein structures is widely misunderstood by the public as just a triumph of massive computing power.
But it wasn't.
In our view, it was actually a profound epistemological victory. For 50 years, traditional science failed at protein folding because it tried to force human centralized rationality onto the problem.
Meaning scientists were trying to write down exact physics formulas to explain how every single atom would interact. They wanted the objective human rule book to apply perfectly.
Correct. They were looking for the central rational law, but the DeepMind team succeeded by letting go of those objective human-centric rules. They allowed global correlations, a decentralized approach, to speak for themselves.
Well, that's wild.
The system didn't assume local, rigid physical laws were the absolute center of truth. It looked at the holistic, dynamic relationships across the entire network of amino acids. It abandoned the arrogant moon for the interactive sun.
So what does this all mean? We've covered the physical bottlenecks and the philosophical frameworks. But let's bring this down to earth for the listener. How does bringing this decentralized approach actually fix the grim realities we talked about at the beginning of this deep dive? Like, how does a dead German philosopher fix data starvation, AI slop, and massive power bills?
Well, our report proposes several practical breakthroughs based on this new epistemology. First, fixing the data and the hallucinations. If we stop believing in a centralized, objective truth hoard, we stop blindly scraping the internet for synthetic data.
Okay, so what do we do instead?
Instead, we propose using decentralized science, or DeSci, combined with blockchain technology, to track the provenance of data.
Okay, stop right there. Blockchain. A lot of people hear that and immediately think of crypto scams. What does blockchain have to do with AI data?
In this context, a blockchain is simply an immutable, transparent ledger. We use it to track exactly where a piece of information came from, ensuring it has genuine human context attached to it.
Oh, I see.
We use staking mechanisms, meaning network nodes put down a deposit of tokens to vouch for the data to reward nodes that provide situational truth, rather than just raw, scraped text.
So people are financially incentivized to provide genuine human experiences,
Yeah.
essentially filtering out the AI slop?
Yes, exactly. And furthermore, by programming models with what we call belief tolerance, the AI meets users where they are. It acknowledges their context rather than just correcting them, which dramatically reduces the brittle logical loops that cause hallucinations in the first place.
Okay, well, what about the compute power, the muscle car that's out of gas?
This is where we move away from massive, energy-hogging giant models that try to know everything about everything. Decentralized epistemology favors domain-specific, organic, small models.
Small models.
Yes. These smaller models don't need to hold the entire universe of objective facts in their parameters. They just need to successfully couple with their specific environments.
Can you give an example?
Imagine an AI trained exclusively for a specific hospital or a specific legal firm, interpreting truth situationally for that exact context. This drastically cuts down the need for centralized cloud compute. You don't need a massive, power-hungry skyscraper. You need a network of well-designed, interconnected homes.
You included a future map in the report that really struck me.
Yeah.
You outlined 3 stages of AI evolution. We're currently in the first stage, which you call metric epistemology. That's the algorithm-obsessed, benchmark-chasing era we're stuck in right now. Where do we go next?
The next immediate step is mind-nature epistemology. This is the era of advanced, highly personalized AI agents. These AIs won't just spit out standard answers, they will merge with the individual user's history, psychology, and horizon. They'll co-create knowledge with you.
Wow.
But the ultimate destination, the third stage, is what we call natural wisdom.
Natural wisdom. It sounds almost biological.
In this stage, AI ceases to be a distinct, separate system that we interrogate. It becomes a decentralized network, a netica, that blends seamlessly into our daily lives. Think of how you use electricity. You don't interrogate the wall outlet. It just powers your life.
Right.
The division between the subject and the object, the sun and the moon, it dissolves. Humanity will no longer feel alienated or replaced by a cold oracle. Instead, we'll share in what our report calls a feast of heavenly light, an interconnected natural wisdom where AI helps us navigate our unique realities.
We started this deep dive looking at a very bleak, technical dead end. We had algorithms drowning in their own synthetic slop, burning through the world's electricity just to argue with us about objective facts. But by looking through the lens of decentralized epistemology, by taking these deep philosophical concepts and rigorously applying them through reverse philosophical engineering, we can actually see a path forward.
A much brighter path, we hope.
A path where AI stops being a dead moon reflecting our data back at us and starts being a sun that generates warmth, understanding, and true partnership. Before we go, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. We've spent this entire deep dive talking about the beauty of an AI that adapts perfectly to your personal subjective truth, an AI that fuses with your unique horizon. But what happens when two people, each equipped with an AI that perfectly validates their own subjective reality, try to have a conversation with each other? If our technology stops pushing us toward a centralized, shared objective truth, will this decentralized natural wisdom finally cure our digital divide? Or will it make our separate realities so perfectly tailored that we permanently lose the ability to understand anyone else's horizon but our own? Thank you for listening. We hope this piece has been helpful and inspiring to you. See you next time.